Welcome back to another episode of Fluent by Yourself. I'm Sam.
And I'm Sophy. Today we have a fantastic topic for all of you who want to upgrade your English level, but maybe you don't have the time, the money, or the desire to go to a traditional language school.
Exactly. A lot of people think you have to sit in a classroom for years or move to an English-speaking country to get fluent, but that's just not true anymore.
No, it's really not. With the internet and a little bit of discipline, you can build your own immersion environment right at home. So, Sam, where should someone even start if they're learning on their own?
Well, I think the first and most crucial step is exactly what you just mentioned, creating an immersion environment. You have to surround yourself with the language. And the easiest way to do that? Change the language on your devices.
Oh, yes, the smartphone trick.
Right. Change your phone, your laptop, your social media accounts, everything to English. At first, it's going to be annoying. You'll be looking for the settings app and you won't recognize the icon immediately because the word is different, but your brain adapts so quickly.
It does. It forces you to interact with English every single time you pick up your phone, which is, let's be honest, dozens of times a day. You're building vocabulary without even realizing it. Words like settings, notifications, delete, save, they become second nature.
And beyond devices, it's about what you consume. If you're going to watch Netflix, watch it in English. If you need subtitles, use English subtitles, not your native language.
That's a great point. Reading the English subtitles while hearing the English words is a massive hack. It connects the pronunciation with the spelling in your brain.
Yeah, because English spelling can be a nightmare. Words like night or thorough, you need to see them and hear them at the same time to really get it.
So true. And speaking of consuming content, podcasts like this one are amazing. You can listen while you're commuting, washing dishes, or working out. It's passive learning, but it gets your ear used to the rhythm and intonation of the language.
Exactly. You start picking up on slang, idioms, and how native speakers actually talk, which is often very different from textbook English.
Okay, so immersion is step one. But passive listening isn't enough to actually get good at using the language, right? You have to actively engage with it.
Right. That brings us to our second technique, active reading. A lot of people say, oh, I read books in English, but they just skim through them. Active reading is different.
How so?
Active reading means you're reading to learn, not just to finish the chapter. You start with something at your level. Don't pick up Shakespeare if you're a beginner. Read graded readers or even young adult novels. The key is what you do when you hit a word you don't know.
Right, you shouldn't just reach for the dictionary immediately.
Exactly. Try to guess the meaning from the context first. What is happening in the sentence? Is it a positive word or a negative word? Then, after you've guessed, you can look it up.
And then you write it down, right? I'm a big fan of vocabulary journals.
Yes, but here's the trick. Don't just write the word and the translation in your native language. Write the word, write the definition in simple English, and most importantly, write an example sentence that is relevant to your life.
Oh, I love that. Making it personal makes it memorable. So instead of just writing exhausted means very tired, you write, I was exhausted after running a 5K on Saturday.
Exactly. That way you're learning how the word functions in a sentence, not just its isolated meaning. It builds what we call active vocabulary, words you can actually pull out and use in a conversation, rather than words you only recognize when you see them.
That makes so much sense. So we've covered immersion and active reading, but Sam, what about speaking? I hear from so many learners that they can read and listen perfectly fine, but when it's time to speak, they freeze. How do you practice speaking if you're learning by yourself?
That is the million-dollar question, and it's the hardest part of self-study because you don't have a partner. But there is a secret weapon. Sophie, have you ever heard of shadowing?
Shadowing? Like following someone around?
Kind of, but with their voice. Shadowing is an incredibly powerful technique where you listen to a short audio clip of a native speaker and you repeat what they say almost immediately after they say it. You're like an echo.
Oh, wow. So you're trying to match their speed and their tone?
Everything. You match the speed, the intonation, the pauses, the emotion. You're essentially training the muscles in your mouth to produce English sounds naturally. It bypasses the analytical part of your brain that wants to translate everything first.
That sounds intense, but really effective. Where can people find good audio for shadowing?
YouTube is great. TED Talks, news clips, or even scenes from your favorite movies. The key is to pick a short clip, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and do it over and over until you sound as close to the original as possible.
I'm definitely going to recommend that to people. But what if shadowing feels a bit too rigid? Is there a more spontaneous way to practice speaking alone?
Yes, and this one might make you feel a little crazy at first. Talk to yourself.
Talk to yourself? Out loud?
Out loud. Narrate your life. When you're cooking dinner, say, okay, now I'm chopping the onions. I need to turn the heat down so they don't burn. When you're driving to work, talk about the traffic. Wow, there are a lot of cars today. I hope I'm not late.
I can see how that would help. It forces you to find the words for your everyday environment. And if you don't know a word, you realize it immediately. Like, wait, how do I say spatula in English?
Exactly. It identifies the gaps in your practical vocabulary. Plus, it gets your mouth used to forming English sentences without the pressure of another person waiting for you to respond.
That's brilliant. It takes away the fear of making mistakes because nobody is listening.
Exactly. And speaking of making mistakes, let's talk about mindset. When you're learning by yourself, it's really easy to get discouraged.
Oh, definitely. You don't have a teacher there to tell you you're doing a good job or to correct you gently. You have to be your own cheerleader.
And your own disciplinarian. Which brings us to the final and probably most important technique: consistency.
Yes, consistency beats intensity every single time.
100%. A lot of people get super motivated, they study for 4 hours on a Sunday, and then they don't look at English again until the next Sunday. That doesn't work.
Right, because your brain needs constant reinforcement. 10 or 15 minutes every single day is so much better than a massive study session once a week.
It keeps the language fresh in your mind. So set a tiny, achievable goal. Tell yourself, I will read 1 page of a book in English before bed. Or I will do 5 minutes of shadowing in the shower.
I love the shower idea. Great acoustics.
Exactly. The point is to make it a habit. Tie it to something you already do every day. If you drink coffee every morning, make that your English time.
Habit stacking. That's a great strategy.
And remember, learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. You're not going to see massive progress every day. But if you look back after 6 months of consistent practice, you'll be amazed at how far you've come.
That's such a great reminder. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate the small wins. If you understood a joke in a movie without looking at the subtitles, that's a win.
Absolutely. Well, I think that covers our core techniques: immersion, active reading, shadowing, talking to yourself, and consistency.
If you implement even just 2 or 3 of these, you're going to see a huge difference in your English level.
Definitely. Thank you all for listening to this episode of Fluent by Yourself. We hope you found these tips helpful. Get out there, or stay in, and start practicing. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Sam, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, the idea of using apps and technology for learning, because I think a lot of our listeners are probably already on their phones all the time. Can we talk about how to use that time smarter?
Oh, absolutely. This is such an important point. Most people use their phone for entertainment, but you can turn it into a learning machine. There are apps specifically designed for vocabulary building, like flashcard apps. The idea is simple. You see a word, you try to recall the meaning, and the app shows you the answer. It's based on a concept called spaced repetition.
Spaced repetition. I've heard that term before. Can you explain it for our listeners?
Sure. So spaced repetition is a learning technique where you review information at increasing intervals. You see a new word today, then again tomorrow, then in 3 days, then in a week, then in 2 weeks. Each time you successfully remember it, the interval gets longer. This matches how our memory actually works. We remember things better when we review them just before we're about to forget them.
That's so smart. It's like working with your brain instead of against it.
Exactly. And the beauty of these apps is that they handle all the scheduling for you. You just open the app, do your 10 minutes, and the algorithm figures out which words you need to review.
Okay, so apps for vocabulary. What about grammar? Because I know a lot of self learners feel really insecure about grammar. They worry about making mistakes.
That's a really common fear. And I want to say something that might be controversial. Don't obsess over grammar rules when you're starting out.
Really? That surprises me.
Here's the thing. Native speakers don't think about grammar rules when they talk. They've internalized the patterns through massive amounts of exposure. So the best way to learn grammar is not to memorize rules, but to read and listen to so much English that the correct patterns start to feel natural.
So it's more about developing an instinct for what sounds right.
Exactly. Of course, if you make a specific mistake repeatedly, then yes, look it up. But don't let grammar anxiety stop you from speaking and writing. Making mistakes is how you learn.
I love that. Embrace the mistakes. They're data points, not failures.
Perfectly said. Now, let's talk about writing, because I think it's an underrated skill for self-learners.
Oh, yes. Writing is so powerful.
When you write in English, you have to actively retrieve vocabulary and grammar from your memory. It's much more demanding than reading or listening, where the language is coming to you. Writing forces you to produce the language yourself.
So, what's a practical way to practice writing without a teacher to correct you?
Great question. One of my favorite methods is keeping a journal in English. Every day, write just 5 to 10 sentences about your day. What did you do? How did you feel? What are you looking forward to tomorrow? It doesn't have to be perfect. The goal is to build the habit of thinking and expressing yourself in English.
And if you want feedback on your writing, there are online communities and language exchange platforms where native speakers can correct your writing in exchange for you helping them with your native language.
Yes, language exchange is fantastic. It's a win-win. You help someone learn your language, and they help you with English. And it's completely free.
I did a language exchange for about 6 months once, and it was one of the best things I ever did for my language skills. You get real, authentic feedback from a real person. And you also build a connection with someone from another culture, which makes the whole experience more meaningful and motivating. Absolutely. Okay, Sam, let's talk about one more thing before we wrap up. A lot of our listeners might be at different levels. What advice would you give to someone who is a complete beginner versus someone who is already at an intermediate level and feeling stuck?
Great question. For a complete beginner, I would say don't try to do everything at once. Pick one or two things from what we've discussed today and do them consistently for a month. Just 1 month. Change your phone to English and listen to one English podcast a week. That's it. Build the habit first, then add more.
Keep it simple and sustainable. I love that.
For intermediate learners who feel stuck, and this is super common, by the way, it's called the intermediate plateau, the key is to push yourself outside your comfort zone. You've mastered the basics, so now you need to expose yourself to more complex, authentic English. Stop using materials designed for learners and start consuming content made for native speakers.
Like, instead of a learner's podcast, switch to a real news podcast or a comedy show.
Exactly. It will be harder at first. You won't understand everything, but that discomfort is where the growth happens. And over time, you'll find that your comprehension improves dramatically.
That's such good advice. Lean into the discomfort.
And one last thing for everyone, regardless of level, find your why. Why do you want to learn English? Is it for your career, to travel, to connect with people, to watch your favorite shows without subtitles? Whatever it is, write it down and put it somewhere you can see it.
Because on the days when you don't feel like practicing, that why is what will keep you going.
Exactly. Your motivation is your fuel. Keep it visible.
Sam, this has been such an amazing conversation. I feel like we've given our listeners a really complete toolkit for learning English on their own.
I hope so. To summarize everything we talked about today, create an immersion environment. Practice active reading with a vocabulary journal.
Use shadowing and self-narration to build your speaking skills. Use spaced repetition apps for vocabulary. Write daily in a journal. Find a language exchange partner. And above all, be consistent and patient with yourself.
And remember, you don't need a classroom. You don't need an expensive course. You just need curiosity, consistency, and the right strategies.
Well said, Sophie. Thank you all so much for spending this time with us on Fluent by Yourself.
If you found this episode helpful, share it with a friend who is also learning English. The more the merrier.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep going. Bye!
Bye, everyone. Happy learning.